the sluggo. Slant and go.
Casey the Big Cregan. Can you believe it? This is show number 50. We missed 1 week. We were 50 for 51, pretty good batting average, and Mother Nature took the other week from me. We always talk about the weather. We would think Mother Nature would take a week on your end, but it actually happened here with a negative 6 degree day. But our 50th show, it's our golden anniversary. I think that's what I looked up on the internet.
Yeah, it is.
I'm happy to be here for week 50th. Out of this 627 podcast I've started, I don't think I ever made it to 50. I know you're an old hat at 50. Matter of fact, you've crossed 100 on your other show. So I appreciate you being around for 50 weeks. Look forward to the next 50.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned the weather. You know, we are the local weather guys for wherever you are watching this tonight. But I thought the weather was going to take us out up here in New Jersey today. We got battling some hail and some thunderstorms. So we were touch and go there for a little bit before the show with the internet and the power flickering on and off. But we're here for now anyway. It might be you talking to yourself here in a little bit. But we've dealt with that before too, right? With me doing Max Hedger back in early days of this show. So I'm glad to be here too.
Here's a good thing. If I talk to myself, nobody's going to argue with me. Like you said, I've done it before. And actually, sometimes I argue with myself. See, I'm already doing it right there. So speaking of arguing, I wanted to start with the show because I didn't want to get fired up about this. I just want to say it up front with it before I get wound up talking about transfers and transfer portal. The ACC network is a joke. And I've been on this rant before, so it's not really going to be a rant, just a more expounding on it. Now, yesterday was the ACC baseball tournament started, and, as Clemson fans, we've struggled with that concept, and they've struggled playing, by the way, down 1-0 to Georgia Tech early. But I turn on I go to look for the game. It's 10 a.m. here in Texas. What's better than college baseball at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, right? It's not on the ACC network. Throughout the day, there was none of the games wrong that I saw, and I only looked for like 3 or 4 hours, but Instead of college baseball, there was Packer and Durham, two old dudes talking. We could have been on there for all that matter. Packer and Durham, followed by a replay of Clemson and Duke softball. Now, the way Clemson played, it turned out to be okay, but I thought the whole point of the ACC network was to promote the Olympic sports and the lesser-known sports that don't get a lot of revenue and a lot of attention as football and basketball do. And I turn over to the SEC network, and guess what's on there? The SEC tournament. Wow, what a concept. I don't get it. I just don't understand it. And it's a poorly run network in my mind.
Yeah, I think JP shed some light on it. JP Priester of allclemson.com shed some light on it, saying that the contracts were in place years ago. So maybe even before the ACC network was there. It still doesn't make it better. It doesn't. Exactly. You're exactly right. A lot of us are still working from home. We can be in front of a TV with our computers or phones or whatever, what have you, and have the game on in the background. It's just something that, unfortunately in this time that we're living in, we're able to do that. And so yesterday I was doing the same thing, sitting behind my computer, turn on the ACC network, and I didn't even get a Spurtle commercial because I guess they didn't spend the money to sponsor the ACC tournament. But we couldn't even get, what was the old Food Line? We couldn't even get old Food Line ads on the old Jefferson Pilot, to sponsor. Yeah, it's frustrating, especially because exactly what you said. The meaning behind this network is to showcase the conference. And it's great to watch Clemson softball again, but we don't, and Florida State spring game, I think, was after that.
What was the other one?
Come on. And that's a repeat too. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know the leadership of that TV, but man, something needed to be done. They needed to step in and say, hey, this is our showcase event for baseball. Even though that's another story, the way that the ACC does their baseball tournament, it's so awful. But yeah, it was terrible to not be able to watch it. I'm trying to watch on my phone. My phone's ringing. It just wasn't good.
But I get the contract angle, right? And that makes, I was going to say perfect sense, but it doesn't really. I get the contract angle, but the point is the SEC had all that figured out, and they made sure their baseball tournament was on TV, where guys like me who likes an ACC team is watching the SEC tournament. And that's why they're the top conference, and the ACC will always struggle. New commissioner, let's hope things change and things change and get better, because it sure can't get any worse. The production value on that network we've talked about 20 times. This kind of thing is just horrible. Making Clemson play on Friday nights is just ridiculous. Clemson football, I mean. I'm all for Clemson basketball playing on Friday night, but Clemson football on Friday night is beyond ridiculous. They need to step it up and act like they're in the big leagues if they want to have any shot at keeping up with the SEC.
I agree 1,000% on that too. And I even made fun of the SEC network's coverage of the South Carolina Clemson game. Well, they've stepped their game up. That tournament is crystal clear. The announcers are great. The baseball is really good. And I found myself doing the same exact thing that you were, which was watching the SEC baseball tournament, because I was in that mode. I was in college baseball mode. I wanted to watch Clemson play. I wanted to watch the games after Clemson, because I'll watch good baseball, and the ACC has some good baseball. But instead, I'm watching South Carolina and Alabama. I'm watching Georgia and whoever they beat, LSU, instead. And that's taking viewership, right? I'm an ACC guy by nature. I want to watch the ACC, and you're taking an ACC guy and moving him to the SEC. It's not a good look for anybody.
You can't be an ACC fan even if you want to. And speaking of that rant, here's a little side rant. I didn't put this on the rundown, so it's not going to surprise you. I'm an old dude, right? And trying to watch the ACC network or baseball on the ESPN app, whether it's on the TV, on the computer, or on the phone, is an exercise in futility. One of them says it's not in my it's not with my package. The other one, I'm watching it. I'm like, well, how come it's in my package here? It's not in my package here. And then they start, 4 pitches in. I don't get that concept, why they can't say, we know this game's starting at, 5:05. And it's like the college kids that are doing it are like, I'm supposed to go to work. It's just horrible. It's 2021, people. We can land the rover on Mars 21 billion miles away from Earth, or whatever it is, within 20 feet, and we can't watch a baseball game.
You're on fire tonight. I love it. But not to pile on this, but I will. The thing that you said a couple weeks ago, I think maybe it was even just in our text chain, but if we start talking out loud about the Spurtle, lo and behold, on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you're going to see a thing for Spurtle. And like, I didn't search it, but it's going to be on every social media. The fact that ESPN, the app, doesn't understand that I want to watch Clemson baseball or Clemson softball, the amount of pages that I have to click with my finger, I know, first world problems, I get it. But the amount of pages I have to go to and like swipe to the right to keep, I feel like I'm on Tinder, swiping to the right to turn off all these other ugly teams. And I want to find that beautiful orange paw, but it's funny because the AI just is not very smart, apparently, on the ESPN app.
That's not smart at all. You have to go through the Southern Conference and the Trans-America Athletic Union, or whatever the heck it is, before you find the paw. It's just crazy. They can't remember crap. They can't remember if I'm in the network. I got the phone in the hand. The game's on my phone. I'm in the network, but the TV is not. Those are old people problems.
It says, first world problems, old people problems.
I'm sure I'm missing something, but man, I really am missing it. Let's get over the rants and let's talk about some recruiting, because I know you're interested. For the second week in a row, we're going to talk Rutgers recruiting. Now, you may be the only one watching this show that cares besides me, because we're going to talk about recruiting for everybody. Rutgers got another 4-star, and this one's a legitimate 4-star. Some of those other guys were like 285 overall, the 300 range. This guy, Jacob Allen, is a 4-star. He's number 110 overall, the number 11 offensive tackle. number one player in New Jersey case, headed to Rutgers, and the Scarlet Knights jumped to number 7 in the 247 rankings. They now have 5 4-stars and 7 3-stars. That's a 3.42 star average, which, for Clemson fans or Alabama or Ohio State, you go, oh, that's a bad year. But for Rutgers, it's pretty good, and maybe Schiano is building something there, as you've alluded to in the past.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm a broken record, but the thing that made him successful, and albeit it was the Big East Conference years ago, was keeping the in-state talent in state. And I know with apologies to the Floridas, the Georgias, and the Texas of the world, New Jersey doesn't have terrible football. It actually has, especially in the Catholic leagues up in the northern part of the state, it has very good football teams. Teams that would go out and play St. John Bosco, teams that would go down and play Burns and compete and win a lot of the times too. So there are some really good talent in a couple of these schools. This kid's from one of these schools that is a prep school. So it's a 5-year school. He's not a 5th-year kid. But I wasn't impressed watching him, and I was kind of like, and his offers were like South Carolina. I think he had a Penn State, he had a Rutgers. It wasn't like an all-out impressive list of. It wasn't unimpressive, but it wasn't like, there was no Alabama, there was no Georgia, there was no LSU. The SEC team was South Carolina. I think he might have had a Kentucky in there as well. It's a big get for Schiano, no question, because he's got to protect that 4-star quarterback that he just got. That's the highest rated quarterback he's got. Rutgers has ever signed or verbaled. So it is a big get. I'm just not all that excited about him, although the fan base is. So we'll see. And it's not a sexy position, right? It's a tackle, so it's not sexy. His film is kind of just like blah. He plays good competition. He does in this prep school league, and they play a little bit out of the state as well. But he's throwing kids around, so maybe he is good. I just wasn't excited about it.
Hard position to evaluate, right? Because a lot of the 5-stars don't pan out. Texas and Georgia can tell you about that. Florida State probably a few too. And some of the 3-star kids end up being really good if they go to, say, Wisconsin or even Alabama, if Alabama takes any 3-stars these days. So it's really hard to evaluate. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't jump out on the film to you like a running back, quarterback, wide receiver would necessarily, skill position. So it's one of those hard ones to evaluate. So and it's in the eye of the beholder. Clemson offers guys that nobody else offers and end up starting for the undefeated national champion. So never know. It's what you see on those offensive linemen. But
he's the number one player in New Jersey for a reason. Who am I? I'm not a recruiting analyst at all. And Schiano's keeping the number one player in the state in state.
That's why we're going to have Jason Priester on next week of allclemson.com to talk about recruiting.
Exactly. Bring the brains onto this show.
John Chansey, we have no idea which 4 or 3-star kids were underrated because he has been under-evaluated. I'm not sure if he's talking about that young man from New Jersey or not. You were talking about teams from Rutgers playing Don Bosco. Isn't that where Chris Sims went in New Jersey? Wasn't there Don Bosco there, I thought?
Don Bosco Prep was the top team in the country, or at least the state of New Jersey, and arguably the top team in the country. They've had multiple kids. Chris Sims was one of them. He actually transferred to a public school late in his high school career, and they were still good. It was Ramapo. But they've had quarterbacks from Boston College. They've had running backs there. They've had a quarterback at Rutgers. The team that my high school played, my last year working there, 2003, we had 5 kids going D1, including Andre Callender, who played at Boston College with Matt Ryan, the running back. I remember his first carry of the day. Seton Hall Prep was ranked 3rd in the state. Don Bosco was 1. Don Bosco had 17 D1 players on that roster, including Marquise. I wanted to say Lattimore, but that's not his name. He went to Florida State. He was a DB, had 4 years at Florida State. Quarterback went to Rutgers. Running back went to Boston College as well. But Callender, who was arguably the best running back in the state, takes a pitch around the right side, gets hit, comes off the field, and it's like, that's the hardest I've ever been hit. And needless to say, at 56-0 at halftime, the starters walked up. They enter. It's kind of intimidating. They enter, where they walk up like a little hill. It's just a driveway, but they all walk up in line in unison. It's like lockstep. And the starters and probably the second string came just with just their jerseys on. They didn't even have their pads on anymore. So it was one of those. I think it was a 63-17 game for Clemson fans out there. And their freshman team was playing the third and fourth quarter. So it was a very good program, very good team. But some other schools have caught up to them. Where the Bellamy kid is from, the DB from Bergen Catholic is a school there. St. Peter's, which is the feeder to St. Peter's University that you have the peacock shirt.
Yeah.
They're another really good football team too.
Cool. All about New Jersey high school football.
Rashawn Gary went to Paramus Catholic, which was another school. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, Clemson Target that day. That year. Next up, and again, always apologies for mangling some of these names. I'm an old dude, and I'm used to Bills and Bobs and Toms and Casey. Sione Hala, 4-star safety, number 336 overall from St. John's Bosco, who Clemson fans know about, out in California to Boston College. A good gift for Boston College. Again, 336 overall. Those of us who are lucky enough to follow teams or have gone to schools with teams that recruit in the upper echelon say, but a good get for Boston College. This is a guy who went to school, same school as DJU, correct?
Absolutely, St. John Bosco. And watch out for Jeff Hafley. He's a good coach there at Boston College. And they're recruiting. This 4-star kid, that's a nice get for Boston College. And if they can get some of these kids, pluck some kids from New Jersey and Ohio and the surrounding areas, Pennsylvania even, they're going to be good and with good coaching, and he's a good coach. All
right. Next up, and this is a more recent one, Dakota Twitty. I can pronounce that. 4-star wide receiver, number 298 overall from Mooresboro, North Carolina. Goes to the University of Virginia. Max Fence has another hole on the other side. It's got a hole south, and this is the hole up north. Mac loses a 4-star to the University of Virginia.
Yeah, poor Mac. I think as I was talking about Rutgers before, I was talking about I was thinking about Schiano building the fence around New Jersey, and it's pretty solid. He's got a better contractor apparently than Mac Brown.
No doubt. And a little closer to home, Greer High School, Jaleel Skinner. He's played wide receiver mostly in high school. He's viewed as a tight end in college. He's a 4-star. This is a top 100 kid, number 94 overall, number 3 in South Carolina. Now, he didn't commit, but he put out a top 10, which I found interesting. I haven't followed recruiting very much. I'm starting to more this year for this show and the website that's coming up. But he put out a top 10 of Florida, Texas, Miami, Arizona State, Clemson, Alabama, Florida State, LSU, Oregon, and Oklahoma. But here's what I found interesting, Casey. I'm an old dude. I'm looking at his graphics. I see those first 4 teams, Florida, Texas, Miami, and Arizona State on one line, the other 6 on a line below it, including Clemson on the lower line, and my mind immediately goes, oh, he's got 4 favorites, and Clemson's not one of them.
I think this is the Kyle Pitts syndrome here with a guy that's going to go play tight end in college, and what's hot, that offense down there was fantastic with Kyle Pitts, so everyone thinks they're better than the guy before him. So I think that's probably what leads Florida to be in the lead here. Plus, Clemson doesn't use the tight end nearly as much. They did this past year, but they haven't used their tight ends nearly as much as fans have wanted. How about that? Saying it that way. But you're right. It is an interesting top 10, and that having those 4 up top leads you definitely to believe there's always something, right? These kids always have something. They're not. They think they're smart, but we're on to you, Jaleel.
Well, and the next one was something else too. Ashton Whitner, a 3-star safety out of Greenville High. He announced a June visit schedule, which includes trips to Clemson, FSU, Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, North Carolina. And those are unofficials, and officials to Syracuse and West Virginia. But in his tweet, he put 1%, which I found out apparently means something to Florida State fans. Get 1% better every day or something. That's apparently one of their sayings. So they now believe this young man is headed to Florida State. They're reading the tea leaves, and I think their reading comprehension might be off a little bit. He has got, like I said, he's got officials playing with Syracuse and West Virginia.
Yeah, we'll see. You never know. It's just fun. It must be fun for these kids. I think us old guys always look at it. It's like Jiminy Christmas. Just declare already. Just talk. What's in these videos all the time. But it's got to be fun for them with the social media and stuff, and to play it up and kind of drop little hints maybe. But then could be that take the wrong hat or the other hat the day of. So it's got to be fun. I know nothing about, and it's good for the show too, right? I know nothing about Ashton Whitner. Haven't seen him. Haven't watched any film. I will now, but I don't know anything about him, so I apologize.
He's a lower ranked guy. He's at 3 stars, so I don't even know if Clemson is going to offer him. But I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was intriguing because of where he went to high school, and these are 2 guys from the upstate of South Carolina, and he's all over my Twitter. So, and we have to do transfers, Casey. We cannot go a week without doing a transfer. This is one you brought up to me, JT Finley from LSU to Auburn. I hadn't heard much about him, and everybody was acting like this was this huge, great, big, giant, leap for Auburn. This guy was a 3-star, number 499 overall, and number 19 pro-style quarterback. Had 941 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions as a true freshman at LSU, which, he's a true freshman, and LSU wasn't LSU, the Joe Burrow LSU, but maybe he was part of the reason why. But the point is, he was not this be-all and end-all coming out of high school, 499, almost number 500, and people are going crazy. How bad is Bo Nix?
Well, I think that's part of it. I think there's no question about it that's part of it. It's Bo Picks, as I think some Auburn fans and all of Alabama fans call him. But this is a get because he started 2 games for LSU last year and was pretty good. And it might be the Logan Thomas syndrome. The kid's 6'6", 250 pounds. He looks imposing on the field. And I know it's Brian Harsin and not Gus Malzahn running the offense at Auburn. But this is a guy that could fit that type of offense, where kind of a Cam Newton-esque, where you can run him because he's got the big body, 6'6", 250 at the quarterback position. He's a good-looking prospect, and I think that's where maybe some of this excitement comes from, is the fact that he is so big and he's got a big arm, and maybe not out of high school, but with a little bit of coaching on the college level, a good quarterback coach and a good system that fits him and gives a little competition to Bo Nix. I think it's a win for Auburn, no question. Well,
now that you say that, it's Harsin instead of Gus. Maybe it is a good sign, right? Because Harsin was a quarterback's coach, offensive coordinator. So versus Gus Malzahn trying to do some stupid trick play on 3rd and 28 or whatever.
Well, it's like he fits that Chad Morris offense for what we know at Clemson.
Yeah, no doubt. And I heard something on a podcast this morning. I think you mentioned this a few weeks back. It was the CBS podcast Nelson and I listened to, friend of the show, Nelson Wilhite. They were talking about Darion Kendrick maybe ending up at Georgia. They said if his charges are reduced or dropped. So Georgia will apparently not take him if his charges are what they were originally. But if they reduce those charges, Georgia says, okay, we'll take you. So I thought that was intriguing also, especially since Georgia and Clemson play in game 1. And he theoretically could be playing against Clemson on September 4th.
Yeah, and I think JP said it on one of his social media sites today. It's the worst kept secret in transfer portal history that DK is going to end up at Georgia. He's very big homebody. He's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so he's going to stay somewhat close to home. I think he's already got the track record. He's already got the police blotter report, police record that fits right into the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm sorry, I had to get that in. I've been sitting on that one all day. But no, I'm kidding, because all reports are that the charges are going to be dropped against him, not even reduced. So dropped. So it really does feel like, reading the tea leaves again, that DK will be a Georgia Bulldog come this fall. Now we'll see how he does, because he was all world coming out of the spring last year. Everyone was so excited about him, thinking that he was going to go pro, and didn't have a great year for for those Clemson people out there. Definitely, he was rather a frustrating player for most, myself included. But maybe he steps up. He's got Will Muschamp. Excuse me, he's got Will Muschamp down there. So maybe he coaches him up, and I know he was close to Muschamp coming out of high school, coming out of spring with that school up South Point High School in Rock Hill.
Well, if I remember correctly, he's got the whole Muschamp family there, because I think there was like 4 or 5 of them on the Georgia staff in some capacity. I'm not sure what all the business cards said, but I read, there were so many Muschamps on there, I couldn't keep up with it. A little bit something new this week, Casey. We have high school players opting out. Jaden Blue, number 48 overall, the number 3 running back, he committed to Texas, and he has decided to sit out his senior year of high school, which Texas fans love. And my quick quip there was, Texas fans love it till he opts out of the last 3 years of college to prepare for the NFL. This guy ran for 2,155 yards and 30 touchdowns last year in the Houston area, Klein Kane High School, averaged 9.5 yards a carry. So that's a real school in Texas, big-time Texas high school football, and I'm sure he's going to be a great player. But, I'm concerned. The kid's opting out of high school. I mean, your senior year of high school, he's going to school theoretically, but he's opting out of his senior year of high school football to prepare himself for college. And again, we don't know. Maybe I would have made the same decision if the time and the place and I was worth a crap. Maybe I'd have made a similar decision. But sitting from afar, I'm having a hard time understanding it. He's betting. He's made his mark. And one of the arguments on that same podcast, one of the arguments was, well, he's had almost 500 carries over the last 2 years in high school, and you don't want the wear and tear on your body when you're going into college and then to the NFL. Somebody else pointed out that, was it Derrick Henry, I think it was Derrick Henry, had almost 500 carries in his last high school season. And he's doing okay, by the way. He had another, 800 at Alabama or whatever. And I don't know. It was just a ridiculous argument. From my perspective, I understand the injury part, because I knew a guy when I was younger who went to play in the South Carolina, North Carolina All-Star game, and he had a full ride to South Carolina, hurt his knee in that game, and never played it down in college. So I get that part of it.
Yeah, but it's a slippery slope, right? It's the first of many or another. It's the first of another person, and I know he definitely mentioned that. He did one of these. Jaden Blue did one of these opt-outs like the college players do when they opt out of their last year of eligibility. He did a letter and his little cartoon picture of himself, and he definitely mentioned in that one of the first lines, holding the wear and tear of his body to be the best physical condition he can be for Texas. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Right.
But I just think it's a slippery slope. God bless the kid. If he's good enough that he can do that, and Texas is going to allow him to do that, then if other schools are going to allow their recruits to do the same thing, it's a trickle down effect, man. It's starting to hurt college football, and now it's going to hurt high school football. So I don't like it at all, but I have nothing against the kid, just the situation. I'm not a fan of it.
At what point do you and I think it was Danny Cannell actually that made the point on the podcast of saying, what happened to the love of playing the game, right?
Or with your teammates.
With your teammate, he put that in there too. It's about your teammates and the love of the game. When are you actually going to play the game? Are you going to go to college and play a year and say, I don't want to get hurt next year. I had 1,200 yards my freshman year. They know what I can do. I don't want to go to hurt. I'm going to sit out and go to the NFL and then go play 1 year in the NFL and say, I think I'll sit out and wait for the Hall of Fame. No, I'm just joking.
Barry Sanders did that. Barry Sanders.
Yeah. He put in more than 1 year though, but I don't know. So I'm all for, I keep saying this, I'm all for the player empowerment, and he has every right to sit out. But colleges and NFL teams have every right to question, is he going to do that when you get to the NFL? Let's say he has a guaranteed contract, and I know the NFL is different than baseball or basketball, but you see it in an NBA right now. Guys sit out because it's their birthday week, right? Guys sit out because they're feeling bad about something, and those contracts are guaranteed. And I just wonder when it's all going to collapse. And like I said, nothing against the kid. Hope he does fantastic. I do not want him to get hurt. I've seen that happen in my lifetime. As I said, just playing in an all-star game, whole career is over. You don't know what that guy could have ended up being. So more power to him. Just for us as college football fans, the trend is not good.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that trend at all. And I know, to go off on a little side rant here, under the same umbrella, but a different sport, basketball is doing something similar too. There's 6 or 7 high schools or 8 high schools are going to start their own league, the national league, and then there's also another league that some players can opt into to play their last season of high school basketball. It's like a professional league, kind of a developmental league. So it's going that direction, man. And it stinks that now high school football is being touched too, because we're going to see not the leagues necessarily, but kids leaving their high school programs to go do something else, get their bodies ready, or play in a semi-professional league. It's hurting the high school big time.
I mean, IMG Academy, right? Everybody leaves their school to go to one place to play with all the superstars. There'll probably be a league of IMG type schools, right?
Well, yeah, the basketball, it's like Montverde Academy in Claremont, Florida, and some other school, Bishop Gorman, probably out in Las Vegas, which isn't actually a school. It's fun.
Yeah. Hey, but here's some good news. Let's talk some actual football, kind of. Early lines are out for week 1. And we got friend of the show and show contributor Zach Locks Parker. I forced him this morning to give his opinion on some of these early games. And what we have here is LSU is a 1.5 favorite over UCLA. North Carolina is 5.5 point favorite over Virginia Tech. Penn State is getting 4.5 points versus Wisconsin. Alabama is 18.5 points favorite over Miami. Georgia's getting 3 against Clemson. I've already seen that up to 4, by the way, in some places. Wow. And Notre Dame is giving FSU 9. So before I get your take, we asked Locks what he thought, and here he is running down. Notre Dame won't cover. Who cares about the Big Ten? LSU and Bama cover, of course. His two SEC, being an SEC honk. Too early to tell on Clemson and Georgia, but he thinks Sam Howell's going to win the Heisman. I happen to agree with the 4 of 5, the first 4. I don't agree with Sam Howell winning the Heisman because I think you don't have something to say about that team. But I've already made my bets at Bob on Spencer Rattler and DJ Uyunglele. I'm starting to wonder how I'm going to collect those millions if you move from Missouri. But we'll figure that out along the way. I agree with Zach on the first 4, by the way.
Yeah, don't worry about Bob, because I'll have somebody log into that account for you for your millions. But
give my $6.
Yeah. I kind of agree too with Locks here. Notre Dame, I'm not sure what they are, and I know friend of the show Pal can probably tell me different. We're not sure what they are, and in the flip, we're not sure what Florida State's going to be here too. They attacked that transfer portal, and they got some good talent there. So if they can coach them up, Mike Norvell and crew can coach them up, Florida State may make a little run this year, and that might be my kind of dark horse. I'm not going to go against Clemson, but maybe a little foreshadowing to when we get to that preseason show. Florida State may be better than we think. So I agree with him that Notre Dame won't cover there. Who cares about the Big Ten? I kind of like the Penn State, Wisconsin. For some reason, I'm a closet Wisconsin fan, but they always blow it. So I'm not like, it's kind of from distance. I like that Wisconsin line a lot. I think that they're going to be okay this year as well. LSU and Bama, yeah, no, come on. Who are they playing? I mean, Alabama's going to cover everybody. Doesn't care. Bryce Young new quarterback, but they're just reloading it on defense and reloading at running back and wide receiver. Mechie's back, blah, 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 blah. But the thing, Sam Howell to win the Heisman, Locks had a thing a couple of years ago with Will Grier, who was the transfer from Florida to West Virginia, and I think he's going to go the same route here with Sam Howell, be kind of his darling. I have a problem, not necessarily with Sam Howell, because I don't have a problem with Sam Howell. I think he's good, and he's going to be probably one of the top 3 draft picks in the NFL draft the next year. I have a problem with North Carolina getting all the love that they're getting this year. I saw a tweet the other day that talked about how they were going to be so much better, and someone even, just for fodder to get conversation started and to troll people, said that North Carolina was going to win the ACC. And so I stepped back a little bit and looked at all that they've lost. And they lost 2 running backs that were very good and a couple wide receivers as well. Now, they do return 9 guys on the defensive side of the ball and all 5 guys on the offensive line. So I did a little bit of research on the offensive line, and I said, all right, all 5 guys back. That's awesome. That's what you want in a college football team, right? Yeah, that can't be bad. You got the all-world quarterback. You got all 5 guys back. They were 120th in the nation in sacks allowed last year. So is this exactly the offensive line that you want back this year to protect this all-world quarterback? They gave up 36 sacks or something like that in 12 games. It was close to 40 in 12 games last year. So the number isn't necessarily staggering, but it was 120th in the country. So I think there was only 127 teams that played last year. So they were in the bottom. There was not even 10 teams worse than them in the country. I just have a problem with the fact that they lost as much talent as they lost, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and they're still being discussed as one of the top teams and going to be give Clemson a run for their money for the ACC. And that might be a little Clemson slandered because of who I am. But remember, I'm the eternal Clemson pessimist here. So I look for reasons for teams that to beat Clemson. I just don't think it's North Carolina. I don't know who it is on the other side yet. I haven't really dug too deep. But I don't think it's North Carolina. And like you told me before, jokingly in a text, they're going to end up 8-4.
Yeah, well, I'm not really jokingly. Could be, and I think we got a hint about the Clemson because you got like a tiger paw beside your head that's actually bigger than your head.
That's the only thing in the world.
I put North Carolina's schedule up on the screen, and John Chancey agrees with you, and I agree with you also. Look at this schedule. They visit Virginia Tech on the Friday to open the season. And then they play 6 straight home games, not over 6 weeks. There's no open dates in there. The 11th, 18th, 25th, October 2nd, 9th, and 16th. That doesn't – I think that – no, I'm sorry, Georgia Tech. It's got an asterisk by its neutral location. Okay, that's a little bit better. But still, they don't play on the road. They play 5 home games and a neutral site game. What a weird thing to have a neutral site game in September the 25th. Weird. Okay. But Virginia Tech, which they're favored by 5.5, then Georgia State, they're going to win that game. They got to beat Virginia, Georgia Tech, Duke, probably. They'll beat all 3 of those, maybe. I don't know. How good's Virginia going to be? Then the Florida State team we talked about with Milton at quarterback, as John Chancey just mentioned. And then Miami, who's supposed to be really good this year. Then they got to travel to Notre Dame. Who knows? A new quarterback at Notre Dame. We don't even know who he's going to be. Like I said, we need to get Pauk's take on that. Wake Forest at Pittsburgh versus Wofford and at NC State. At Notre Dame, at Pittsburgh, at NC State. I don't see the greatest season ever coming out of that.
Those 3 games, October 9th, 16th, and 30th, they're going to be lucky to win one of them, I think. Now, Florida State, I know they're down, and we still believe that they're down. But those 3 games, boom, 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 3 straight weeks, they're going to falter in one or 2 of them. Notre Dame being Notre Dame, we're not sure what they're going to be exactly, but we expect them to be competitive. We expect them. I think Pauk said on his show 5 Foot Nothing Pod that they expect to be 10-2, 11-1, and I mean maybe that's a Notre Dame just talk being that way, but with the way that their schedule works out. But that game's going to be tough. I keep hanging. I hope I'm wrong, but I keep hanging my hat on this Florida State thing being better this year. So they go Florida State, Miami, and Miami's going to be good again, especially if De'Ara King is a shell of him, decent this year. And then Mackenzie Milton. I think that's a gauntlet there. They could lose all three of those games. And I'm looking at NC State, the last game of the year, rivalry game. NC State usually gives them fits. It's usually a good game. I think there's 4 losses right there that I'm calling.
Well, I don't know how good they're going to be, either one, but Notre Dame and NC State are physical teams, which I think will give North Carolina fits. They seem to me be more a finesse team to me, and maybe that's because of Sam Howell. But it seems to me that the physical teams like Clemson, NC State, and Notre Dame will give North Carolina fits. To answer Nelson's question, I think the 4th non-conference game is actually Wake Forest. I think they are playing Wake as a non-conference opponent in that schedule.
They did that last year too, I think. The same 2 teams, I believe, or the year before.
I think I remember they did a 4-year agreement to play. They did a 4-year agreement to play Wake as a non-conference opponent, just to keep the state money flowing there. John Chancey says, I think State gets them. I think we all agree on that, John.
Yeah, I mean, how much here I am contradicting myself because how much I hate this preseason stuff, but just on paper looking at it, I don't. I mean, 8-4, is that going to win the Coastal?
Might.
It might.
6 might win it. Who knows?
It has before, right? It has before.
Unfortunately, 6-6 might win it. All right, Casey. Let's turn over to our Clemson Minute here. The softball team season ended last weekend in Tuscaloosa. A Clemson-Alabama matchup. They seem to be running each other in all kinds of sports, basketball and football, and now softball. A great season, tough ending. But Alabama had the Lady Tigers numbers last weekend.
Yeah, Alabama was just a juggernaut, man. Clemson had no answers for them whatsoever, and to see Valerie Cagle look human against the team was fun, and not fun in a good way, but just because I've been watching a lot of softball this season, so I've kind of grown an appreciation of the sport, and to see how good that Alabama team, they had the answers for Valerie Cagle all weekend, and then the bats for Clemson stayed cold against Alabama. That girl they got in the circle is nasty. Tough draw, as we all know and complained about a couple weeks ago. It was a tough draw. It's tough to see teams like Virginia Tech go to the next round. It's tough to see Florida State, who was probably the best team in the conference, even though Clemson didn't play them. It's tough to see them go through. Notre Dame had a chance. Duke had a chance in their regionals, and Clemson really just had no shot. Beat Troy, a good Troy team, twice. Did a nice job playing them and battling them, but when it took a step up in competition, we saw that maybe we're a couple years away, Clemson-wise, from being the dominant force. Great season. You can't take anything away from them at all. John Rittman's fantastic. Valerie Cagle and the whole crew were wonderful, and a lot of that team comes back next year. I think they lose Ansley Gilstrap at shortstop. They lose Cami Pereira at second base. They lose Casey Bigham at third base. But they have some talent there that's going to be able to fill the roles, and everyone else seemingly was freshmen or COVID freshmen. So Clemson's going to be okay, and maybe they can turn the tide, if you will, in a couple of years.
You know what's not tough to watch? Well, unless you're on the other team, is Oklahoma softball. They were losing like 7-1 in the second inning and won 24-7 or whatever.
They are ridiculous.
I saw their Twitter feed. By the way, the Oklahoma softball Twitter feed has like 180,000 followers on it, and they were hitting home run after home run after home. They were just smashing the ball. I think they got like 200 home runs in the season. I think they had 150 in that one game.
I texted Nelson. They were down to Wichita State, and I'm like, they're down in the fifth inning. And then before I could even hit send, I think they were up. It was like 2-1 in the fifth. And before I could hit send, I think it was 5-2 Oklahoma.
Yeah,
so, they're good.
There's like when I was a kid, we only had one ball. We were so poor, and it ended up being lopsided eventually. And I think that's what the softball looked like. in Norman last weekend. Nelson's still mad about the draw Clemson got in the tournament. Like I said, I don't know enough about it to argue about it. I'll take you guys' word for it.
Yeah.
All right, Casey, a difficult topic for both of us here. We're talking pre-show how much we love Clemson baseball and how this season has been a struggle. Now, there are some on Twitter saying that Monty Lee should be replaced, to put it nicely. I told you I'm a little bit biased toward Monty for some reasons. He and I have had some conversations and talked, and maybe this is not fair. I'm a little biased. I think he should get another year. Clemson has had 3 baseball coaches in like 64 years, right? Bill Wilhelm, Jack Leggett, and Monty Lee. And I do not think you should get in the habit of firing coaches after 1 year. Just a year ago, they were 14-3 and had a very, very good team. Spencer Strider's in AAA now, I think. So they had a very, very good team. And, the pandemic shut that down, and everybody had to go through that. I understand that. I think he deserves another year. But if it's a year like this one or similar to this one, I think they need to look at making a change.
Yeah, I don't know if Dan Radakovich, the Clemson athletic director, is one to do to have a quick hook here. However, I think we've seen this in other sports in and around Clemson. I don't expect to see, if Monty Lee is to return next season, I don't expect to see his staff retained. I think this is going to be one of those meetings that it's kind of that last gasp. You have 1 more year to get it right, but so-and-so's got to go and so-and-so's got to go, whether it's Andrew C., the pitching coach, or Bradley LaCroix, the assistant coach and recruiting coordinator. But something's going to probably happen if Monty Art is to stay. I'm a Monty Lee fan, and that sounds funny because I hate the analytics that he coaches by. I just think this is kind of a weird year for Clemson baseball. I thought the talent was there. We had JP on here and saying how good the pitching staff was going to be. Some injuries and some people just not living up to their billing, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. It seemed to kind of derail this team. But you and I were talking pre-show how excited we were in that 15-game stretch. They sweep Louisville. They're winning games. They're winning 7, 8, 9 in a row. Then they can't win a series against teams like Georgia Tech and Duke. Good Georgia Tech team, an okay Duke team, and you get swept at home. It was a very frustrating year for Clemson fans like myself of baseball. I've been on record saying it is my favorite sport. I love all Clemson sports, and baseball. Clemson baseball is my favorite sport at Clemson. And it was a tough watch this year. And quite honestly, I didn't watch a lot of it because I was not frustrated. It was just like I couldn't stand watching them lose.
Yeah, it was at the end there. The Duke series was a tough watch. Yesterday's game at Louisville, it was a tough watch in more ways than one. You couldn't get on the dang TV for one, but it was tough to watch. I take D-Rad at his word. He's going to look at the program. You want to say it's relatively healthy, but I have a hard time saying that. What I saw on the field, I saw stretches where it seemed like they weren't into it that much. And I'm 1,200 miles away, and reading into what I see on the TV. So who knows in reality? But I know that it was really tough to watch as a fan. And as you said, first time in my life I became disinterested at some points in Clemson baseball, and that's really, really tough to say. And you're talking about a quick hook. I agree to some extent, but when you have not had a losing season in 64 years and you have a losing season, something has to change, as you said. So
yeah, if he stays, and it's going to be one of those situations, I fear that it's going to be like, hey, get rid of your guys and you stay, and then he refuses because he's loyal, and then he's gone. That's just what I fear that could happen. Or he gets rid of Rob Spence, aka Tommy Dodden back in the day, and moves on.
Big Koenig too.
That's right.
All right, basketball transfers, 2 coming in. We talked about last week. They're now official.
Yep, David Collins, USF, 6'4", 220 pounds, had 12.5 points a year ago for the Bulls in Tampa. He's a 37% for 3-point shooter. Clemson fans know Clemson shoots a lot of threes, so he'll fit right in there. And then Naz Bohannon, from Youngstown State. Little side note, they are known as the Penguins, their mascot. I like that mascot name. Youngstown, he's 6'6", 228. Thing I like about him watching his film, he had 16.5 points, led his team in scoring last year, but he also had 8 rebounds. So he is described as a big body, and like I said last week or the week before, when you think big body, you're thinking 6'9" and above. He is only 6'6", 228, but he is a monster on the boards apparently with 8 rebounds a game. So, hey, you got to fill these transfer spots from all the kids leaving. So these are 2 guys that have experience. They're going to be there for a year each, I believe. I think they're just a year each, but they're going to contribute probably right away.
And if any team could use some help on the boards, it would be the Clemson Tigers. Casey, you keep telling me that Chopping Beef is on hiatus. I'm wondering if they've been banned from the internet. How many weeks have you guys gone without a show now?
This will be the 3rd week, but we're back next week. We are gearing up to season number 4. That's right. I'm naming it season number 4 of the Chopping Beef Show. We'll start back on June 3rd. I think that's the Thursday.
Yes, it is.
Because my birthday's that Friday. Hint, hint, everybody send me gifts. But yeah, so we are back June 3rd. We're ready. We're excited. We just had a lot of moving pieces. I was umpiring last week. Locks is traveling this week. And we could do 2 guys, but I just thought, you know what? Let's take a couple weeks off, relax, regroup. We got college football coming up, so we take a little bit of a different angle than this show on that one. So yeah, we'll be back and the same as ever next week.
All right. Tell everybody thank you, especially Nelson and John Chancey, who kept the comments flowing tonight. We appreciate you 2 guys. JP Priester, next week we're going to talk recruiting. Most of the show with JP Priester. Hopefully we'll get some Clemson information, and we'll go outside of Clemson and check out some other guys too, to hopefully pull in some more viewers. Tell everybody thanks, Case.
Yeah, thanks to everyone in the Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite and Nelson Wilhite for all his help and support. I don't know why we can't say your name tonight, John Chancey, but we can't. Thank you for the comments, and Nelson as well. Everyone on Seldom News Reserve, Sluggo Podcast, and each and every one of you who listens, likes, and shares and participates on behalf of Marty, Seldom News Reserve Coleman. I am Casey the Beef Cregan. He got it right. We'll see you next week right here on Sluggo.
ACC Network stinks.
I think we're done here.